Welcome to the RBN RoundTable for September. My name is James Fauntleroy, one of your hosts for today. I have my sister from another mister and my brother from another mother joining me today, Sabi and Nick. Good to see you all.
What's going on, JB?
What's popping, my friends, my family? We got another fantastic roundtable. I was just live with Sabi yesterday. That was a banger. Make sure you guys check out Sabi and Nick live yesterday. We got a great show for you guys today. James, I'll pass it to you.
All right. So just to let you guys know, if you guys have not already, every single month on the last Thursday of the month, we have the RBN Roundtable where RBN all comes together like Voltron to be able to talk about news topics with you today. If you guys have not already, go ahead and give a like. That helps us out with the algo to push us out there to inform, inspire, and activate more people. So thank you very much for that. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Also, if you guys have not already, you guys can sign up for our Substack at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. This gives you email notifications so that whenever we go live or upload any clips, you guys are the first to know. So you guys have that there as well. So thank you very much for that. For email inquiries, you can go to revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com if you have some stories that you would like to share or just some encouraging words. You guys can always email us there. Thank you so very much. Shout out to all the patrons that have helped us to keep the lights on. We thank you dearly. And a hello to everybody that is watching on all the socials as well as on YouTube, Rockfin, and Rumble. And hello to everybody that's in the chat. We'll get to you guys in a little while. But what are we talking about today? Well, it's going to be a big topic, and it's an important topic. We're going to be covering Abandoned Heritage 24 is joining us to discuss what is going on lately with Abandoned Heritage and also their mission. That's one of the things that we want to get to is their mission and why they are abandoning Kamala Harris right now. So with that being said, in addition to and furthermore, I'd like to introduce Hudhayfah, Ahmad. Good to have you.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, nice to have you as well. So why abandon Kamala Harris? Because everybody's saying Donald Trump is going to be an existential crisis for us.
So I guess we have to go back to the genesis of it all. And by that, I mean, shortly after the October assault on Gaza, many people of conscience took to the streets calling for a ceasefire. One of our co-founders, Dr. Hassan Abdessalam, who is also a professor of strategy and human rights, noticed that what we were doing at the time was a good strategy for being ignored. No one was really going to take us seriously. So he approached another person named Jailani, who was the executive director of CARE Minnesota. And together, those two individuals launched Abandon Biden, called on Muslims from various swing states to rally in cause of punishing the Democratic Party. But this has to start out with a warning. So immediately, we put out a statement to President Joe Biden at the time, telling him he had until October 31st to call for and enforce a unconditional and permanent ceasefire. If that deadline was not met, we said that we would work to ensure that he lost the 2024 election. That deadline was not met. The ultimatum was ignored. And so Abandoned Biden went into full swing on November 1st. As everyone knows, Joe Biden announced that he would not seek re-election in July. Kamala Harris was endorsed and became the eventual nominee. Once Joe Biden endorsed Kamala Harris, we said that we would be open to meeting with her. Prove to us that you're different. Many of us didn't believe that she was different. We actually believed she'd be exactly the same. She was Biden's number 2 throughout all of this. August 19th, we launched Abandon Harris. We kept the registered name of Abandon Biden because to us, we want to emphasize that as much as she wants to distance herself from Joe Biden's mistakes, his policies, his disastrous human rights violations, to us, Abandon Biden extends to people who were complicit and were instrumental in supporting Joe Biden up until the moment he said he would not seek re-election, even till now. By the way, Joe Biden is flying under the radar now. He is still committing human rights violation. A report came out saying that Antony Blinken purposely hid the fact that Israel was engaging in a systematic and purposeful starvation of Palestinians. And that report was presented to Blinken, and he hid it purposely with the full knowledge of Biden, with the full knowledge of Kamala Harris. He hid it purposely because exposing it meant that following in line with U.S. law, they'd have to stop sending arms to Israel. So all of this is tied together. She doesn't get to just distance herself. We launched Abandon Harris, and we're currently in full swing with the goal of ensuring that Kamala Harris is held accountable for being a participant and a full endorser of this genocide. And because everyone says, well, does that mean you want Donald Trump? No, this isn't an endorsement of Trump. All right. It's the Democrats who are in power right now. It's the Democrats who are carrying out these policies right now. It's the Democrats who are sending arms to Israel right now. Right. We're holding them accountable. We're holding them accountable right now. We're ensuring that they don't get to just get away with funding, arming, enabling, supporting a genocide. This is not an endorsement of Donald Trump. This is a strong rebuke, and it's us enforcing a red line. Democrats talk about red lines all the time. They don't enforce it. We have red lines. We're going to enforce it.
Ahmad, I want to, it's been a while since I spoke to you last time, but since then there was the Democratic National Convention. And I think one of the most controversial moments on that stage was the fact that leaders of the Uncommitted movement were asking to give a speech on the stage, just as an Israeli family was given the opportunity to do so. From what I understand, the speech was already vetted, and it ended with an endorsement for Kamala Harris. Because they were kind of ignored by Kamala's campaign during that point in time, they decided to stage a protest outside of the DNC and said they were going to be there all night. All they're asking is just a chance to speak on the stage and to be heard, which I thought this was pathetic, to be honest with you, because it was very clear to me what Kamala Harris was doing. But long story short, the campaign said, we are not going to let you speak, which in my view, I saw that as blatant discrimination, because they allowed Israeli family members to speak, but they would not. They said a Palestinian American will not be on the stage. They let Republicans come onto the stage and speak. Everybody, celebrities, anyone except for a Palestinian American. What happened there with the Uncommitted campaign? Why do you feel, I guess more so, those leaders were not willing to take the position that you're willing to take at Abandon Harris?
In short, it's because they're uncommitted and we're committed. Look, I empathize with them. I do. I know that we're all working towards a similar goal. And I don't want to put down anyone. I really don't. But it hurt me as a Muslim, as a Palestinian, as someone who's working to hold the Democrats accountable for the genocide in Gaza. It hurt me to see them embarrassed in that way and then to degrade themselves in that manner. What do I mean by that is them tweeting out, AOC has joined our sit-in via FaceTime, to me was, I just threw up my hands. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Multiple times, their leaders have been asked by their own community as well as reporters, why should the Democrats hold you in any regard? Why should they take you seriously if they know at the end of it you're just going to vote for them? The difference between us and Uncommitted is that we believe our influence comes from proving that we can punish. Our influence comes from proving that we can walk away. The Democrats and the Republicans, politicians in general, the people they will take more seriously, i.e. the donors, are the ones who have proven I'll completely walk away. I don't care. There's no reason to hold anyone in any kind of regard or to take them seriously in any way, shape, or form if you know that at the end of it, they're still going to vote for you. When they released their statement saying, we can't endorse Kamala Harris, but we don't recommend anyone vote third party, and we don't want anyone to vote for Trump, a 12-year-old could read that and say, okay, so that means I should vote for Kamala Harris. So you've given people, we're not going to endorse Kamala Harris, but we are going to have very strong language when it comes to voting for third party. We're going to say, absolutely do not do it. Do not vote for Donald Trump, and do not sit at home and not vote, right? Just by process of elimination, that is a roundabout way of endorsing Kamala Harris. And I think the Muslim community, the Muslim American community, and by extension, the American populace, the voting populace, is realizing by seeing what's going on that a lot of these groups and these individuals who claim to be speaking on behalf of the Muslim American community, at the end of it, they're just speaking on behalf of themselves, their own self-interest, their own positions within the Democratic Party. When I see you engaging in a level of vitriol and anger and firmness with third parties, the question I have is, where was this towards the party that's currently committing the genocide of our people? Where was that? And so with everything that's going on, I think it's important to note that the 2024 election will actually show and actually prove who is representative of the Muslim American voting bloc, who is speaking on behalf of the Muslim American community, who is actually lobbying on behalf of the Muslim American community, and whose job it is to sit there and relay to the political parties and to the politicians exactly what the Muslim American community wants and demands. Because some people will sit here and say, we're representative of the Muslim American community, but they're not. They have one job, and that job is to deliver the Muslim American vote to the Democratic Party. That's their job. We're going to absorb your anger. We're going to absorb your frustration. We're going to absorb your grievances, and we're going to let you know that we agree with it. You know, January 2024, February 2024, we're on your side. Yeah, we understand. And without realizing it, people are slowly being veered into voting for those same individuals who are arming and funding and enabling and supporting the genocide happening in Gaza.
Yeah, very well said. That's why the uncommitted movement is actually very nefarious, and they serve a very particular role for the establishment. And there's a lot of people who were following the lead of the uncommitted movement because they cared about Palestinians. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the people in leadership, the people that was directing the organization of Uncommitted, the people who was kicked out of the DNC convention. I'm glad that they didn't speak at the DNC. Do you guys see their speech? They released the speech that they was going to give at the DNC floor, and it was essentially them repeating Israeli propaganda, Democratic Party propaganda, condemning Palestinian resistance, essentially saying, oh, we're one of the good ones. Don't worry, we're not one of the bad Palestinian groups. And then endorsing Kamala Harris at the end of the speech. So isn't it better that they wasn't allowed to speak at the stage and embarrass the anti-genocide movement? Because what they have done, they have devalued the lives of Palestinians with their stunts. It's the same thing we see with the Black Congressional Caucus. Now, one more thing I was saying, and I have something I want to ask you here, but I said this on my show before. It's very important, I think, for us to have the pendulum swing as often as possible. The worst thing that could happen for human rights is for the Democratic Party and the ruling class to get a mandate for genocide. So imagine if Kamala wins, and especially wins with a sizable portion of the Muslim vote, that is not only the Muslim American community, but the population as a whole, giving the ruling class permission to commit genocide. It gives a mandate towards genocide and endless war. We have seen the most damage come when you have two terms. You had the 2 terms of George W. Bush Jr., and look what he accomplished. 2 terms of Barack Obama, and see what he accomplished. 2 terms of Bill Clinton, look what he's accomplished. Do you guys see how horrible it is to have one wing of the establishment gain momentum to get the political mandate? That's why I am unapologetic when I say I want Kamala to lose. It will be tragic to give the ruling class the mandate towards victory after everything we did for him. So with all that said, Ahmad, I want to ask you this question, because I am seeing a lot of people abandon Harris, and I'm seeing this momentum that I think is not even being accurately represented in the corporate media and their polls. But I want to ask you directly, like, how has the Muslim community, or just anyone you guys have been lobbying towards in your activism, how receptive have they been to the message? Has there been any pushback you guys received? How's the voter base, and how successful do you guys think you have been in peeling the Muslim American community away from the Democratic Party?
That's an excellent question. When we first launched, we didn't really have as much support as we would have liked, because people were saying, look, Israeli assaults in Gaza happen every couple of years. Israel refers to it as mowing the lawn. That's how they talk about killing human beings. They say mowing the lawn. The one that people remember the most is the one that happened in 2014, in the summer of 2014. And so people were just under the assumption that give it a couple of weeks, there's going to be a ceasefire. But slowly and surely, the images and videos coming out of Gaza were getting progressively worse and worse and worse and worse. And I'm not just talking about mangled bodies. I've seen images and videos that I never thought I'd ever see in my life. Things that no horror movie director could come up with. The latest one I saw, and I'm sorry for, I guess, being graphic on here, I don't know if you'll let me, but the most recent one I saw was an Israeli missile strikes a school, and a pregnant woman is torn to shreds, and her fetus had come out and was onto the rubble, and the civil defense worker is shifting through the rubble, and he has a video of himself taking that fetus with the umbilical cord still attached out of the rubble. Who on earth could have imagined seeing something like this? One thing that sticks in my mind is a woman who tells a reporter, me and my husband waited 10 years to conceive. 10 years. And we finally had twin boys in September of 2023. And the camera pans out to show that she's holding the bodies of her 2 twin boys. She lost her twin boys and she lost her husband. So you have the graphic element, and you have this element that's not really as graphic, but it's a story that tears your soul out. And seeing that happen regularly, multiple times a day, every single day, has radicalized people beyond anything we could have ever expected or hoped. So when you hear these stories and these announcements, Muslim group comes out in endorsement of Harris Waltz, you look at that, and I tell people who weren't paying attention, this is a Muslim group that is primarily funded by non-Muslims. This is a group that's not really funded within the Muslim community. No one within the Muslim community knows who these people are. They don't. They are puppets. They're charlatans. They're people who are propped up to say, yeah, we're Muslims and we support the Harris-Walz ticket. And you look through their Twitter and you find out in early October, they were like, yeah, we support what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. Which tenet of your faith are you following when you say something like that? And so I think whenever you see one of these groups pop up, when you look at the comments underneath Uncommitted, you have Muslims tearing them to pieces. You look at Engage's comment when they endorsed Kamala Harris, you have Muslims tearing them to pieces. There's an entire rabbit hole I'd love to take everyone down when it comes to these Muslim groups, specifically that group called Engage, just to give you an idea. These groups aren't really representative of the Muslim American community in any way, shape, or form. They are representative of their own self-interests and their own jobs. The founder of Engage works in the State Department. When Trump came into office, he was removed from the State Department. And then when Joe Biden was elected, he went back to the State Department. That person, just that what I described, does that person sound like the kind of person who would take the Muslim vote away from the Democratic Party? Does that sound in any way, shape, or form like someone who would be against their own self-interest? No. Their entire strategy is, I have interest within the Democratic Party. I need to preserve it. And it's worked in the past. It's worked in the past. But right now, with what we're seeing, you have a Muslim community that's just angry and frustrated and is lashing out at anyone who dares to support the Democratic Party after everything they've done in this past year. We are coming up on 1 year of this. 1 year of untold and never before seen brutality, live streamed every single day. That's going to have an effect on people, whether they realize it or not. I talk to people who will tell me, I'm feeling very sad. And I have to point out to them, it's not normal to watch a live stream genocide for 1 year. Your grief is compounding bit by bit by bit, and you're waking up one day with the weight of an entire anvil on your soul. That's why you don't feel the drive to keep going anymore, to move forward anymore. It's weighing down on you. This isn't normal. None of this is normal. We can't normalize any of this. So when you said the ramifications, I brought this up with Black Liberation Media, with Dr. Jared Ball and Renee. One of the tragedies of the human being is our inability to consider the consequences and ramifications of our words and actions 10 steps down the line, 15 steps down the line, 20 steps down the line. A lot of people don't consider the consequences unless they're directly in front of their face. And sometimes people can't even do that. Some people can't even do that. So when people say, well, are you not taking into consideration the consequences of a Donald Trump presidency, a second Donald Trump term? Absolutely. Absolutely. We know who Donald Trump is. But strangely, no one is talking about the consequences and ramifications of what would happen if Kamala Harris, acting as Biden's number 2, a full backer of this genocide, is allowed to win. Is anyone talking about the consequences and ramifications that would happen if the Democrats are allowed to do everything they've done this past year and still win an election? That's going to have direct effects on us here in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. But the problem is no one wants to talk about the concept of an imperial boomerang, where the violence that we are exporting, it's finding its way back home. And if you want, I guess, a summary of what imperial boomerang means, we can summarize it in the words of Malcolm X, Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, when he said, it's chickens coming home to roost. And depending on what you've sent out, he goes, chickens coming home to roost never made me sad, made me glad. But when you've been exporting violence and death and destruction and sadness and grief, it's going to come back. It's going to come back. And we are not going to be immune from that. It's going to come back in the form of a tsunami, a tidal wave that's not going to discriminate. It's going to take all of us. It's going to affect all of us. And so we need to consider this. We need to take this into consideration. The Muslim American community right now is in a state of grief and sadness and anger. And it's in a state of anger And Democratic political consultants have been telling the party they'll forget come November. That hasn't happened. As a matter of fact, the anger has increased exponentially. The sadness has increased exponentially. The grief has increased exponentially. It's not slowing down. And like Dr. Hassan said, our destiny is November 5th. And we're going to make it clear that you cannot run a genocide and win.
Black people wonder why, and James, I'll pass it right to you. I just got a quick thought. Black people wonder why we don't have a black agenda, why the racial income inequality gap has gotten worse, how they're allowed to execute our brothers and sisters with impunity, why they are able to build cop cities, why they're able to create police infrastructure systems that steal our wealth using civil asset forfeiture that impacts black men 60% of the time. You know why they're able to get away with this? Because as they continue to shift to the right, black people continue to support the Democratic Party at an 85 to 90% rate. As they continue to push the vice grip on our community, push anti-black, anti-worker, pro-imperialist party, black people continue to vote for them. Oh, we continue to vote for them, they get better. Why would they do anything for you if you are willing to concede your vote? Bernie bros are confused why Kamala Harris is running like Dick Cheney. She's running like Dick Cheney because all the progressives already said she's going to vote for her. So what are they doing? They're trying to win the votes of who? The people who have not voted for them. Who didn't vote for them? Trump won the white woman vote 2 times. Suburban white women don't vote for Trump. So what both parties are doing? They're trying to win the suburban white woman vote. That's why Kamala Harris talking about build that damn wall. So when you give up your vote with any concessions, the only thing you're doing is giving the ruling class permission structure to continue to ignore you. The professional managerial class pretending not to know this is not only frustrating, it's actually exactly by design. The uncommitted movement knows exactly what they're doing. And what you just said, Ahmad, is extremely important. If we allow the Democratic Party to win and have a mandate after a genocide, they will double down and become even worse because they have no reason to change. James, I know you have something you want to present. I'll pass it to you.
All right. Just speaking of which, we're one of the main people we're talking about is Kamala Harris. I would like to share this and get your initial thoughts about what Kamala Harris said to Dana back.
President Biden has tried unsuccessfully to end the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. He's been doing it for months and months, along with you. Would you do anything differently? For example, would you withhold some U.S. weapons shipments to Israel? That's what a lot of people on the progressive left want you to do.
Let me be very clear. I'm unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense. And
so does that mean that she will actually be willing to actually grant an arms embargo? Because she says she's unequivocal, and basically her support is, unconditional. And that means if it is without conditions, that means that Israel can do anything and still get support. So my question to people who are watching, who are on the fence, and they feel like genocide is a red line. And I'm also speaking, let me put this here. I'm also speaking to some of the political commentators in the independent media. If there is no conditional support, if there's unconditional support for Israel, my question to you is, what is your red line? What is your red line to many of you who are now driving your audiences towards Kamala Harris? That's actually a really valid question. Because if you're going to sit here and try to hand wring and go, well, we're trying to prevent Trump. How are you going to prevent Trump when you basically have a woman that actually has the same foreign policies as Donald Trump? How are you actually preventing Trump when you're giving us another version? That's my question.
There is no
Go ahead, Sally.
There is no red line. they don't really have a red line. There never really was a true red line. They were saying that at that point in time, to try to get Joe Biden to move to move in the right direction, but that didn't happen. And then so Biden drops out, and then Kamala Harris is put in place, because none of us voted for her in the Democrat primary. She wasn't in the Democrat primary. So she was put in place. And then all of a sudden, a lot of people switched and said, oh, it's her, it's not Biden, so she's going to be better. And then she proved them wrong multiple times with the interview that you just showed, JB, but also at the Democratic National Convention. And every time she's asked about this issue, she says the same thing, over and over. There really was no true red line. That was just a way for some people to send a message to the Democratic Party that they need to fix this situation. But that's just the reality, is that there really wasn't. And it's very appalling to me, and I'll ask you, Ahmad, it's very appalling to me that people who got on board for Palestinian, self-determination and liberation, and were against the genocide. And I'm not talking to the people who never spoke about this issue or didn't join that cause. I'm talking specifically about those that got on board for this and were speaking out against the genocide and said, this is ridiculous. Like, we cannot support the Democratic Party. Like, this is terrible. How can you do this to the Palestinian people? Who all of a sudden, as we got closer to the election, just flipped and said, okay, we know Kamala said this, but maybe you can push her left, just like we said you could push Joe Biden left. How do you feel about that, Ahmad? The people who just caved?
I think there were people who talked the talk, and then there were people who, when it came down to it, couldn't walk the walk. And what I mean by that is, back in 2020, there was a lot of talk about, vote for Biden and then push him left, by the likes of Noam Chomsky, by the way. And what happened is, in the last 12 months, when we tried to hold Joe Biden accountable, we showed up to his speeches and to his rallies, and we were screaming for a ceasefire, and we were yelling. And it wasn't just the Muslim Americans, it was Jewish Americans too, What ended up happening? Those shouts and cries for a ceasefire at Joe Biden were drowned out by people chanting 4 more years, 4 more years. There was no accountability to be had. You're not going to push anyone left after you've given them your vote. You're not. It's just not going to happen. And just to build on the previous point that was made, when it comes to voting, and you stand on, in line at the polls, it doesn't matter if you voted for a politician or a party enthusiastically, begrudgingly, with disgust, with disdain. I vote for them, then I go home and I tweet, ugh, I hate this party. They're horrible. I can't believe I voted for them. It doesn't matter. A vote is a vote, and they got it. Doesn't matter how they got it, they got it. All right? They got it from you. There was no leverage. There was no demand. It doesn't matter how much you cry about it. It doesn't matter how hard you push left. At the end of the day, they know you're going to come home, quote unquote home. They're not going to take you seriously. What we're seeing now is a manifestation of what happens when people actually have something on the line. They actually have skin in the game. What do I mean by that? People love to pontificate and talk about how if they lived in any other era, they would have been of the select few who actually stood up for what's right? Whether we're talking about, let's say, any era, Jim Crow, right? Or if I lived during the time of slavery within, I guess, the U.S. context. Or if I lived during the time in Europe when this was happening or that was happening, right? If I lived in 1930s Germany, I absolutely would have been one of the morally upright people who would have put it all on the line. And what we're seeing is a lot of people who claim to espouse anti-genocide rhetoric, because it looked very good. And it was very convenient to do that when Joe Biden was the picture, right? When it came down to it, and Joe Biden stepped down, and even if he didn't step down, what's to say that they would have stuck to their guns? We don't know. Maybe Trump starts getting more vicious in his rhetoric. They're like, hey, we got to stop Donald Trump. We got to vote for this guy.
They definitely would support Biden. That's my opinion, but go ahead.
They would have done it. They would have done it. But then all of a sudden, Kamala Harris comes into the picture, and she's a more digestible figure, right? And everyone starts making excuses, you know? Everyone starts having reasoning. Everyone starts saying nonsense like, I will protest Kamala Harris January 22nd, but until now, for now, I'm now coconut pilled. These people can't be taken seriously. Change isn't going to happen when your knees buckle at the first sign of trouble, right? Change isn't going to happen when you're constantly putting you and your self-interest before everything else. We claim to have a certain set of ideals and principles. Those ideals and principles, if they're not stuck through and stuck with when the going gets tough, they're not ideals and principles. What you have is a accessory, a bracelet, a watch, a ring that you put on and take off when it's convenient. How do I feel? I feel indifferent because there are people who are genuine and there are people who are frauds. And we learn to be grateful for the hard times because it helps us distinguish who we can really rely on and who we just relegate to the side. Because the worst thing that can happen to your movement and to your struggle is for you to place any kind of responsibility in the hands of someone who's not up to the task.
Absolutely.
And so I'm not bothered at all. I'm not troubled at all. I'm actually thankful for the fact that we're now able to see who's really on our side and who's just walking a fine line between appearing moral, appearing as though they are a person of any kind of uprightness and principle, and someone who's just going to let you down when you need the most.
Do you guys think it's a coincidence? And Sabi, I'll pass it right to you. Do you guys think it's a coincidence that 2014 happened under a president, a Democratic president, Barack Obama? That was what originally radicalized me, was the 2014 slaughter of Gaza. After that, I'll never ever vote Democrat ever again. I voted for Stein 16. That was end of my support of the duopoly. That was one of the many contributing factors. Do you guys think it's a coincidence that happened under Barack Obama? Do you guys think it's a coincidence that Israel engaged in a final solution when Jim Crow Joe is president? Because if a Republican was president, can you imagine how radical these sellouts we are talking about will be sounding? Can you imagine their rhetoric, how militant these people who support lesser of two genocides right now will be if Donald Trump was the person in charge? But what happens is when Democrats are in charge, the professional managerial class who invested in beating Republicans because they are invested in the Democratic Party culture war, they won't protest and resist a Democratic president the same way they will resist Donald Trump. The same people that telling us to give Kamala a chance, they'll be protesting and shouting, genocide Don, genocide Trump. This reality is known by the Israelis. You guys think Israel don't know this dynamic? That's why they do these things under a Democrat. James, I think you want to chime in, but go ahead, Sabi, as well.
Well, I don't want to, just not to interrupt, but you said lesser of two genocides. I think that's the word of the day. I just want to put that out there. Are you picking the lesser of two genocides?
Could I just interject with one thing?
Go ahead.
We don't have to pretend. 2014 happened under Barack Obama. But under Trump, when there was the Great March of Return, where people in Gaza, Palestinians in Gaza, marched peacefully demanding that Israel's siege be lifted, and Israeli soldiers started sniping them. They were unarmed, peacefully protesting, throwing rocks at a wall, and Israeli soldiers were sniping them. And then later it came out that there was an internal contest with Israeli soldiers about how many kneecaps can you get. And a soldier will be like, I got 54 kneecaps. One of them would be, I have 76 kneecaps. That happened under Trump. And I remember what I was seeing in terms of the backlash that happened against Israel and what they were carrying out. And I remember going, what's going on? I'm not used to this level of support. I'm not used to this kind of support. And we all know if October 7th had taken place under Donald Trump, let me just draw this quick picture, right?
Go ahead.
Joe Biden gets up and says, I saw evidence of 40 beheaded babies. And then later gets up and says at the White House podium, I don't believe Palestinians are telling the truth about their casualty numbers. If Donald Trump had been the one to get up and say those exact same things, nobody would have really supported him like they did with Joe Biden. What do I mean by that? Yeah, you'd have the Republicans who'd be like, yeah, we believe Donald Trump and what he's saying. You'd have the other side, the left, the liberals, the Democrats who'd be like, well, this guy's a known liar. You really can't take what he says at face value. But when Joe Biden gets up and says it, both Democrats and Republicans are lining up behind him, saying, yeah, we agree. And then it comes out later that not only are the Palestinians very specific with their casualty numbers, but those numbers are used in intelligence briefings, both American intelligence and Israeli intelligence. That's how accurate those numbers were. People would be like, don't you know things would be worse under Trump? Yeah, maybe they would. Maybe they would. But maybe you as a human being would be better if it was Trump. Maybe we'd see more effort out of you, more empathy and sympathy out of you, more protest out of you, more outrage out of you. Maybe we'd see that. Maybe you'd be better.
Well said.
That's a very good point there, Ahmad. I want to get your take about these internal polls. So I spoke with Dr. Jill Stein and Butch Ware earlier, and there was something that Butch mentioned here, which I think people need to hear because I thought this was a really good point. And this is about the internal polls. Oh, sorry. Sometimes with Twitter videos, I have to do a redo. Sorry, guys. Okay, here we go. Oh, the Twitter.
On Twitter. That boy Butch Ware has been cooking on Twitter too. He had a video where he called out a ton of the black fake abolitionists that are now shilling for Kamala Harris. He's definitely a great get. Hopefully we get it to work this time.
It's like the Twitter videos.
Try sending it to me, Savvy. I can play it.
I can play it right now. I have it ready.
All right,
okay.
Cool. Yeah, because it glitches sometimes. Yeah, it's all good. Go ahead, JB.
Nah, it's all good. We'll blame Elon Musk.
It's Elon's fault.
Yep.
It is very clear that there is a certain, segment of the Muslim voting community that has decided to support your campaign. And that is in the swing states where I've shown people those numbers. I want to hear a little bit more about maybe some of the internal polls that you've seen, if you can discuss it.
So just to be clear, the Muslim vote has been completely lost by the Democratic Party, and it is not coming back. So Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, as soon as I got on the team, took a meeting with Dalia Mugahed, who's done polling in the Muslim community for the last 10 years. She's now senior researcher, and she showed me the numbers. Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan. 3 swing states, which are essentially demographically, for the purposes of the African-American percentage of the population and the Muslim percentage of the population, they're the same state, okay, demographically. And in those 3 states together, 65% of the Muslims voted for Joe Biden in 2020. Joe Biden was polling at 12% in January 2024. They were dead. And I learned that on my first day on the campaign about a month ago. Well, if I knew that a month ago, they certainly knew that at that polling in January of 2024. They have known for 8 months that they cannot win any of the swing states that they need in order to win. They can't win them because they needed heavy majorities amongst the Muslim population just to carry those places. And that's why they've gone so heavy on the racial rhetoric and trying to get black numbers up, because they are trying to compensate for the wholesale exodus of Muslims from their voting bloc. And they seem ignorant of the fact that every time you raise every time you talk to the black community, you're also talking to the black Muslim community. And that black Muslim community is not coming along with this genocide no matter what. So that was January 2024. Now, fast forward, right? We saw CARE run a poll early in the process, where a national poll where first Jill and Kamala were polling at 29%, neck and neck. I've been on the campaign for maybe a week when this came out. Then Wisconsin and Arizona, swing states, and a third one that I'm forgetting. Now Jill is running ahead of Kamala. Well, Yakin Institute, good friends of mine, people that I know, I've seen their new polls that have not yet come out. They're going to come out this week. 53% of the Muslims are now going third party, with 80% of them coming to us now, okay? 15% for Kamala, 4% for Trump, okay? So this narrative that we are taking votes away from the Democrats and giving them to Trump, it is an effort to do two things. They're gaslighting us, one, but they're also scapegoating us. They want to blame the Muslims when they lose the election, because they've already lost the election. They cannot win the election. There is no path to victory for the Democrats. The polls that they're giving you, whatever they're telling you, they all know this. And that's the reason why they had Aosi Pelosi come after us, attacking us. That's the reason why they had Kunta Keith Ellison. Literally a week after he came up to me at Friday prayer on the north side of Minneapolis and wanted to, embrace me, man to man, black man to black man, Muslim to Muslim, then he's told by his Democrat handlers that he's got to put out a hit on Jill. So Massa say jump, Keith say how high, boss? How high you want me to jump? And so that's why they're doing it, because they already know that they have no path to victory.
I wanted to get your take about that, Ahmad, because corporate media has been very, very smart about showing how Kamala fares against Donald Trump and vice versa, but they're not showing people those internal polls that Butch was just speaking of, and they're not showing people, I would say, the true amount of people that are willing to vote third party, but third party voters are also underpolled. Another thing I want people to know is that Trump voters, for whatever reason, are also underpolled. So you have to remember that when you see those polls. But I wanted to get your perspective about what Butch was saying there about the Democratic Party losing the Muslim vote.
We tried to hide it early on because like I said, look, in context, we're a movement that started in November 1st, 2023. And we were aware, look, if we come under attack in the first couple months, we're a movement made up of volunteers. We still are. But we can't draw too much attention to our strategy. So we tried to hide it. Everyone was talking about Michigan. And we were looking at each other in the room and we're like, no one's really noticing the other states. And we were like, is somebody asleep at the wheel? Because when the Muslim American community gets talked about in the mainstream media, it gets talked about in the context of Arab Muslims. When we say Arab American, to be clear, we're talking about Arab Muslims, Arab secularists, Arab Christians, Arab Jews even. When we talk about the Muslim American community, there are Black Muslims, Latino Muslims, Arab Muslims. I attend a mosque that has Native American Muslims. And so that's something that usually gets missed, flies over people's heads. They don't really realize it. So when we're talking about the Muslim American community, in the rage of the Muslim American community, someone will say, well, why does the Muslim American community care? Why wouldn't they care? Why wouldn't they care as they're watching Muslim Palestinians in Gaza, just get massacred and cut up to pieces? and still very open and declarative of their faith. We're seeing Israeli soldiers openly desecrate mosques, taking Qur'ans and just shredding them and flushing them on camera. And so we realized early on that, listen, either this is being suppressed or someone's asleep at the wheel. No one's really noticing. No one's really talking about the polling numbers outside of Michigan. And then soon enough, people started to catch on. But by the time they caught on, it was already too late. It had been 6-7 months of us working quietly within the vine that already existed within the Muslim community. The Muslim community has establishments, has organizations. We all know each other on some level, right? We all go to the mosque. A lot of us go to the mosque every single Friday. We go to the certain Muslim third spaces. There are areas that where Muslims congregate, and all of us were talking about the same thing, right? And so we had been working quietly for 6, 7, 8 months before anyone actually started to take notice that, wait a second, this isn't just Michigan. We're talking Minnesota. We're talking Arizona. We're talking Georgia and Pennsylvania. We're talking North Carolina. We're talking Wisconsin. Somebody missed this. And so when the attacks started ramping up against third parties, we became aware that, okay, now they're realizing what's going on via their internal polling. But at this point, as Dr. Ware said, they've completely lost the Muslim vote. And it's now become a ripple effect where it's not just the Muslim vote that's at risk or that they've lost. They're now losing the vote of allies who are looking at this and saying, yeah, this can't continue. And so they're looking for us to lead. And I've said this multiple times. We've made our message very clear. Listen, if we get our way in 2024, we're going to be made an example of. What do I mean by that? This is the third straight election in which the main platform and pretty much the only platform of the Democratic Party is anti-Trump, is we're not Trump, so vote for us. If you take that away and you start setting a precedent where a minority community can just walk away if their demands are not met. If you're a party whose entire platform revolves around, hey, look how much worse the other guys are, you can't let anyone really set a precedent that says it doesn't matter how much worse the other guys are, we're going to walk away. So we've made it very clear that we know that we are going to be made an example of. They're going to come down hard on us. As a matter of fact, I'd go as far as saying that if Trump wins a second term, it's going to be much worse than the 2016 election. Much, much worse. Because the same people who rushed to airports to provide their professional services pro bono when he instituted the first wave of that Muslim ban, when he starts doing that stuff again, those same people are just going to sit at home and be like, look, we told you so. Go enjoy the fruits of your protest. Go enjoy it. We were very well aware, and we've made a firm decision that we are not going to put our personal interests before our morals and principles. We've made a firm decision that we have a red line and we're going to enforce that red line. I personally say this all the time. I don't care if Donald Trump campaigns on burying me 6 feet under. The Democrats are not getting my vote. And I'm considered one of the most moderate ones, I guess, within this entire campaign. And so they realized it too late. I don't know how they're going to salvage it or what they're going to try to do to salvage it. We're now seeing these puppet Muslim groups pop up saying, yeah, we're representatives of the Muslim American community. It's like, no one knows who you are. No one has ever heard of your name. No one really goes to hear you speak. We have certain Muslim American figures who travel to different Muslim conventions, to different mosques, to certain different areas, and people flock, in the hundreds and in the thousands to hear them speak. No one does that for these people. They don't. So we're seeing the Democrats scramble. Again, I don't know what's going to happen in 2024. I don't know how it's going to shape up. I hope that we're able to hold those committing genocide accountable. But as it stands now, we're letting people know that you have to take a stand. You have to take a firm stand and say enough is enough. You're not going to keep getting away with offering me crumbs and pretending like you just did me a massive favor. We're not going to do that. What you're going to do is you're going to come to me and you're going to present to me a platform that's going to meet my needs. And if you can't do that, stop wasting my time. Get out of my face. It's literally that simple. The Muslim American community has decided we are not going to compromise anymore. We are done compromising. We are done falling into this rhetoric of lesser evilism that has now led us down a path where people are now debating whether genocide should even be a red line. We are not going to continue this role where we are given crumbs and then we are berated because we're not grateful for those crumbs. That's enough. It's done. And we've come to the realization that we don't have any leverage right now, but we will once we've made it clear that we are willing to punish, because that's where leverage comes from.
One of my questions, actually, it's more of an example. When people say, "Oh, we're focused on the Arab vote instead of the Muslim vote," that's like a tragedy happening. It's like the tragedy happening of a country that does something horrible to the Vatican, and then people say, "Well, we just need to get the European vote instead of the Christian vote," and it's like, well, there's way more Christians than Europeans in the United States. So, I mean, you would actually want to get the Christian vote more than that. But yet they still want to push to get just a particular ethnicity vote, when in reality, you have a whole entire religion. Looking at Google, there's 3.4 million Muslims in the United States. And if, let's say, at least a good 55% were to go with a third party, I mean, that swings an election. So,
yeah, I've mentioned this before, how I'm deeply inspired. I think we all should be inspired by what we've seen from our Muslim American brothers and sisters organizing this massive coalition of resistance. I am deeply jealous in a lot of ways, because my entire life I've been advocating for Black people to leave the Democratic Party. We have no reason to support the party that wrote the bankruptcy bill, which stole our wealth, the crime bill, which locked our people up and stole our wealth, the party that's responsible for the upward transfer of wealth that destroyed our community, Barack Obama, for example. I think now is a time where we can form this massive anti-imperialist coalition, because young Black people are leaving the party. A lot of young Black people are against the genocide as well. Like, because we see this coming back in. So my last question I want to ask you, because I know we're going to wrap up here soon. I want to ask you about what your goals after the election is, because we can theorize about who's going to be in charge. We'll still be going up against the same war machine, and the mission shouldn't change. So I'm going to ask you, like, what is the long-term goal post 2024 of the abandoned Biden movement? I ultimately say it doesn't matter who wins. I'm going to laugh at the loser. Like, if Trump wins, I'm going to laugh at fucking Democrats. If Democrats win, I'm going to laugh at MAGA. That's how I'm going to handle election. But after that, what's the goal? To me, the mission doesn't change. But what's your thoughts? What is the goal of the abandoned Harris movement post-election?
So let me start off by thanking you for your kind words. I really do appreciate it. But I think we need to give credit where credit is due. The work we're able to do today is due to the countless efforts, the blood, sweat, and tears of Black radicals in this country throughout history. We were not born out of a vacuum. The work that we're doing today isn't because we're some sort of impressive special community that just started working. We're working on a basis that's already been built before, starting with Malcolm X and Haj Malik Shabazz, who coincidentally 60 years ago was in Gaza. September 1964, Malcolm X was in Gaza for 2 days. And what's interesting is that he immediately identified what Israel was. he immediately identified it as a colonial outpost of the United States. It used to be a British tool, and now it's an American tool. And I would recommend that everyone read what Malcolm wrote when he came back from Gaza in September 1964. But when it comes to what are the next steps? The next steps is keeping this momentum going. Let's say the Democrats win. Okay. Kamala wins the election. We did this with 3-4 months of work. Imagine what it's going to look like with 4 years. If Donald Trump wins, we're going to fight him too. Work and effort and struggle is not defined by whether or not you see the results immediately. We are currently enjoying the benefits of labor and struggle and blood, sweat, and tears of people who fought before us and never lived to see those results. They never got to see any of this. I think back to the quote that says, a society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they'll never sit in. Meaning, I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this for those who are going to come after me.
What's that?
And one thing we've tried to emphasize to the Muslim American community is effort, effort, effort. It cannot be measured. Success cannot be measured based on results. It can't. It can't. Effort is what matters. We will put in the effort. We will put in the work. We will put in the struggle, and we will see, and maybe we won't see, the fruits of that labor. But what matters most is that when we die, when we're on our deathbed, we can confidently say that our morals and our principles was not just an accessory or a piece of jewelry that we took on and put back on when it was convenient. What comes next is that we're going to continue. We're going to continue struggling and fighting. We're going to continue with this new vision that I'm tired of settling. We're going to continue with this new path forward, this new philosophy of, I want something better. Give me something to vote for, not just against. Don't just keep telling me, if you don't vote for this, then this is going to happen. No. We're done with that. We're done with that. Come to me with a platform and a list and promises that at the very core of it is actual hope for a better world. And maybe I won't live to see it. Maybe I won't. But I don't care. I'm now enjoying benefits and luxuries and ease. It's not a perfect world. It's a very imperfect world. But there are people before me who actually put their lives on the line and their livelihoods on the line, their blood, sweat, and tears. And they're nameless. I don't know who their names are. We only know the ones that were preserved throughout history. There are countless nameless people who struggled and fought and strived. I pay respect to that. And I'm going to acknowledge that. And I'm going to say that I would hope that I'm able to achieve 1/10 of what they've achieved. Nameless or not, it doesn't matter. We have to be grateful to those who came before us, because a moral vision for the future can only be achieved and realized when we look at what the moral vision for the past was and how those people acted in those stressing times, those hard times, those times where it felt like the entire world was going to collapse on them and they still kept going.
Very well said. And that's a great revolutionary optimism that was injected. James, I think I see you want to chime in. Anything you want to add, brother? I'll make sure you're on mute, bro. I'll make sure you're on mute.
Sorry, I was just going to close things out. But you go ahead and give your final thoughts. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's what I heard is just pure revolutionary optimism. And it's not about whether you will be successful in our acts of revolution, our acts of resistance. The only reality is that there's nothing else other than struggle. Do you guys think there's a coincidence that despite the mass pleasures that Americans enjoy, the privilege that Americans enjoy, that we are among the most oppressed countries in the world? Do you guys think that's a coincidence? We have all these technologies, all these nice toys, but most Americans can't live their day. They can't go a work day without taking antidepressants. And they tell us that that's normal. They tell us that the mass depression events that we're going through as a population is normal. It's not normal, because what happened, you have the person who lives in a big house alone. There are a lot of these people that take the Colin Powell route, where they sell their people out, they make a ton of money, and they develop material stuff. But then what? At the end of the day, what do you truly have? So we have all these people who are successful, who make a ton of money, but they're depressed because they're not living for any greater cause. What we're truly here to do is to make society better for the next generation. That's implanted in our DNA. And when people resist this, because it's been programmed that we resist this and through our society, that leads to massive depression. It leads to people not having any vision. And that's why so many Americans are aloof. And instead of asking these questions, they tell you to take these antidepressant pills and shut the fuck up. I know it's very cliche to say there's joy and struggle. Well, I'm saying there's nothing else. Because if you're not living a life where you're trying to make things better for the next generation, you will live a life with no meaning, and you will end up depressed. That's my last thought. JV, Sabby, Ahmad, anything else you guys want to wrap up on? I know we're gonna wrap the stream up here soon. But it is very important to take these depressing stories, these depressing streams. We laugh, we cry on RBN, but it's very important to get mobilized. That's why I asked that question. Because no matter who wins at the end of the election, RBN chapter is going to expand. We have work to do. We're going to continue to build with the abandoned by the movement. We're going to continue to build with Bush Ware and many of our anti-genocide brothers and sisters. So that's my last thought, James, Sabi, Ahmad. Any final thoughts that you guys have before we move on? I'll wrap up here.
Yeah. Just a question, Nick, if you didn't write all that down before you just said it, look, I'm a little jealous of you right now, because whenever you cook, you always be cooking from scratch, and I always have to read a recipe.
Man, Ahmad, he was so powerful. I had so much to say. I just had to end it with at least some sort of a call for revolutionary optimism, because that's what RBN is all about. The people who are advocating for lesser to evilism, as I say all the time, they are the biggest political nihilists, guys. Not the people who vote for third parties. The people who voted for Killer Kamala and was planning to vote for Genocide Joe. The people who told you to vote for John Fetterman. They tell you this stuff because they like, we can't do anything else. What else are we going to do? Oh, I give up. No, I will vote for the establishment. So we reject political nihilism, and I refuse to ever turn to nihilism regarding the ruling class. So anyway, good talk, guys. Good talk. James.
Any final thoughts, Sabs?
I do have to go in a minute, but yeah, I totally agree with what Nick was saying. It's like, no, it's not easy to fight for something different, but I think a lot of people just want to take the easy road because they don't want to do the work. And here's the thing: if that's the case, if that's you, if you don't want to do work, then just say that. Just say that and keep it moving.
Yep. Absolutely. So I just want to thank Hudhayfah Ahmad coming on for sharing his thoughts and also sharing the goal of Abandon Harris with us. Look, we stand behind you and doing the best that you can to liberate your people. And I am in hopes that we in the Black community can follow the same trend as our revolutionary elders have, as well as you guys are doing as well. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care. Whoop, sorry. All right, everybody. So take care, Sabs. We'll see you in the next one.
Yeah. See you, Sabby.
Bye-bye. All right. So, Nick, one of the things that I want to do is I want to read these super chats and also give a shout out to patrons on the way out. Is that okay with you?
Yeah. Go ahead, and then Yeah, go ahead, JB. You take it.
All right. So looking like we're good on the Rockfin side. I do want to give some attention to the Rumble side. We got Rumble rants to pay attention to. This is going to be a good one. So we have Rumble rants here. So first of all, we're going to give a thank you to Mark Pugsley. Says, comrades, hello. He asked a question to Nick. Nick, do you think a lesson on Marxism-Leninism would be useful?
Yes. I still can learn more about Marxism. It's a very complicated science, guys. We talk about how to challenge the capitalist class and also how to have a more productive central planning model and how to implement something like that in such a volatile market system with capitalist forces going after it. So that's why there's so many ins and outs to learn. If you want to learn more about theory, I always recommend State and Revolution as a great go-to. That was like one of my first go-to books. It lays out the mission very clearly. People need to understand that this is the theory that many Marxist-Leninists have, that system changing is when you look at the course of history, very common. When people have capitalist realism, and this is many progressives, most people in America, they have capitalist realism. The belief that capitalism will never go away. That's absurd. The most predictable thing in human history is systems failing. The question is, what happens when a system fails? So when feudalism fell, it was replaced by capitalism, which was generally a better replacement than the power mechanism of feudalism. But what we are predicting, what we're telling what happened is that capitalism is an inherently volatile system that will fail. What happens after it fails? There's two solutions to after what capitalism fell. That's what we want. We want to organize into a social society because that's the natural progression from capitalism, and say, well, feudalism was a progression for capitalism, or we can go the other route when capitalism fails. If capitalism fell and the people don't embrace socialism, then we will lead to fascism. You guys notice how fascism is creeping in the West? That's the natural progression of capitalism without socialist revolution. This is what happened in the French Revolution. This happened in many revolutions before, where they got rid of the monarchy, and then they eventually replaced it with a dictator-style system. If you don't have a system, if you don't have a plan for your revolution under a socialist ideology, the only thing that will lead to your future society once it crumbles will be fascism. But anyway, I don't want to give you guys a theory lecture. Anyone can. I still got a lot to learn too, guys. I've only been a theory reading Marxist for about 3 or 4 years. That's nothing. Like I'm very open about the fact that I still got much to learn. But it's a science. And that's why they are able to confuse people about it, because it's a complicated science, because it takes a lot of study. So that's why they're able to confuse people, and they just pretend socialism is when government does stuff. Socialism is not when government does stuff. Anyway, JB, I don't want to lecture because I know I got to go here. So, but say, JB, go ahead. I'm gonna do another theory. Go ahead, James.
Actually, to quote the candidate, the Green Party candidate for Wisconsin, Chester Todd, he said capitalism has a built-in self-destruct mechanism. So there you go. It's going to eat itself.
I wonder what Lenin says. It's always useful to learn, but Lenin said, teach illiterate peasants by example. Very important point, so I'm glad he brought that up. You think everyone read Marx before 1917? Every human intuitively understand the powerful exploiting the masses. Well said, Zoya's love, Zoya's life, my friend.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Now, have another one. This one we're going to get into right now. Let me see. This one is very generous one. Thank you from Goo81. Says, thank you for all of your stellar work. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I didn't check to see if we have any others. I saw those were earlier. Oh, we have another one. Thank you very much for this, for RBN.
Can I read that one? Can I read that one, James? Because I love This is glorious. How can
Please,
anyone
please, go ahead.
believe anything Kamala says when her AIPAC handler is literally her own husband? Now, when I said that on Twitter, boy, I had a viral tweet when I said that, bro. Was the Zionists upset with me that day?
Oh
That's
boy.
why what's his name? Ben Burgess. Ben Burgess and Vanguard called me anti-Semitic because I called Doug Emhoff, Kamala Harris' AIPAC handler husband, which is 100% accurate, by the way. They're like, oh, you can't call a Jewish American an AIPAC handler? Yes, I can. And yes, I did. I called a Zionist that. The same way I called all Zionist AIPAC handlers, because there's a misunderstanding about what AIPAC really is. You guys understand that AIPAC is a collection of 3 million Americans who betray their country and donate to AIPAC, right? It's a collection, it's a collective consciousness. So I am allowed, after you guys support a genocide and you guys support the censoring of the free speech of Americans, I'm allowed to come up with nicknames mocking you for that. So I will call anyone who is in government an AIPAC handler, because that's exactly what they are. They're here to facilitate the message of Israel. And if you guys don't think Doug Emhoff don't play a big role, her husband, who's a diehard Zionist, don't play a big role in her opinions on Israel, you are extremely naive. That's why Kamala was invited to the table. When you in the CIA, you marry other people in the CIA. When you're in the establishment, you marry other people in the establishment. Kamala Harris made it quite clear from day one, and the reason why she climbed the ladder is because she was willing to marry the club. She married a Zionist as a head up to the establishment that, hey, yo, I got your back. I am your lady you want to call when you guys engage in the final solution. Don't allow these Zionists to intimidate you and with anti-Semitism smears. We're allowed to insult them. We're allowed to disagree with them, and we are allowed to give them nicknames like AIPAC handlers, because that's the best. That's the best they can hope for. That's the least they deserve. But anyway, James, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if she was married to Hakeem Jeffries, we'd say this. You'd probably still say the same thing, AIPAC handler.
I said that with many Democrats, and that came from the Thomas Massey interview. When Thomas Massey, and there are a lot of people who was ignoring the context behind it. Well, Thomas Massey explained how every congressperson, every senator has an AIPAC handler. So the joke is, Kamala Harris married her AIPAC handler. You're allowed to joke about Zionists, and they believe that anyone who joke against Zionists is anti-Semitic. Fuck you. Zionism is the height of anti-Semitism. Resisting it is resisting anti-Semitism, my friends. Go ahead, James.
All right. So let me check a little bit more. I think that might have been the last one. I'm not sure. Let me see. I think we're good on that, though. Yeah, I think we're good for the most part on the Rumble rant. So now we can go to the super chats on here. So thank you very much to everybody. So shout out to Zoya coming in. I had to put that in early. All right. We have Black in the Empire. Good to see you. Says you are all doing a great job. Thank you so very much. All right. We want to give a shout out to Cooper for gifting 5 channel memberships. Clap it up for Cooper. Thank you so very much. That definitely helps us out in the long run. Appreciate it very much. Jared super chat from Landrew. Thank you so much. Says Hudhayfah. It has it right. That is how you use power. Voting Jill Stein, New Palestine, a country for all peaceful people. Just to chime in also what Landrew said, the thing is that Zionists are warring against not just Arabs, but also Jewish Palestinians, and as well as Christians and secular Palestinians. The thing is that this is not a war of religions. This is settler colonialism against these peaceful groups that actually are being peaceful among each other. Before 1948, Jews, Palestinians, and secular people, they all lived together in peace and harmony until the Fire Nation, Israel, decided to pop up and ruin it all. So not ruin it all, but go up against them. So that's the problem.
Yeah, and one thing, and we talk about how you use voting power, and you notice our class enemies, the professional managerial class, the people who are sheepdogging people to vote blue matter who. It's almost embarrassing the fact that we even had to explain it, because what they sell to the working class is that we should declare the people we are voting for 6 months before the election. Now, because think about the alternative to our position. Think about how dumb the United States left has been for a very long time. Think about how dumb the Sam Cedar, Vanguard, Cenk Uygur, Bernie Sanders left is, because their proposition is that our strategy should be is to tell the ruling class which faction we should vote for 6 months before the election with no asking demands. And then after we vote for them, then we pressure them after we already give up our power. That is inherently incoherent. And they knew it. What do we say on RBN? Their job was to lead workers off a cliff, and they convinced many people of engaging of this incoherent strategy, which only led to the Democratic Party shifting to the right. Because they did say that in 2020, it led to a genocide. But go ahead, James. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I look at a vote like squeezing the toothpaste out of the tube. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube once it's out.
It's so stupid. And they say this stuff with a straight face. They say, well, we gotta show the Democrats that we were willing to play ball. Like, this is the kind of stuff they say. Like,
no, my God, if the game is rigged, you walk away from the table. Like, hold up. Wait a minute. Let me ask y'all a second. Y'all making me get up. How in the hell is it doable for you to sit there and go, oh, well, we're going to play the game even though it's rigged because we want to let you know that we're willing to play a game? No, you do this. You walk away. You don't come back until they actually play the game fairly. That's the thing. You don't play with cheaters. Who plays with cheaters? The game is done when cheaters come in and cheat. So therefore, if the game is rigged, why are you still playing the game? And the thing is, it's like, why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? Stop giving up the cookie, y'all. My goodness. We tell this to people all the time. Like, why give them a cookie when you know that they ain't going to give you no milk?
Yeah, I tell you guys, man. I used to sell cars. I'm really good at negotiating all that stuff, and I've been witnessing with the professional manager class telling you guys it's so absurd. But anyway, James, let's read last super chat. I gotta get out of here. Any last thoughts?
Yeah. Also, by the way, Nick, before you go, look, as far as voting goes, I don't negotiate with terrorists.
So
if you're paying for people to be slaughtered, then that means you're complicit in it, meaning you're a terrorist too. So I don't negotiate or vote for terrorists.
And never allow the ruling class to convince you that human rights is not a red line.
Yeah.
Like, when people tell, like, I simply tell people I don't vote for Democrats because they're against human rights. Period. And that's the only thing. You don't have to explain shit to people. They're against human rights. They're for war. In the story. Now, once again, I'm lucky because I was talking to one of my family members who's more liberal minded, and I was talking to my comment like, bro, like, there's no way I will vote for her. He's like, oh, that's cool, man. I'm not around these people. I'm not around Democrats. This person is more liberal minded. I think he's gonna vote for Kamala. Like, even one of my friends I hang out with. But I told him, like, bro, there's no way in fucking hell I ever vote for Kamala. His reaction was like, I feel you, bro. Like, I don't understand why these people, and I barely think these people are real. Like, the people who fighting people in their relationships over the duopoly. Who are you people? Like, that's foreign to me, I guess. But James, any last thoughts before you wrap up here?
No, I'm about to do this last one, and we're about to do the patron shout out and leave on and get out.
Yeah, you mind if I dip out here, JB, before you do the Patreon shout out? I'm gonna be with Nico House tomorrow, so we got more content, banger after banger. So hold up, we had Lee Camp on. I had Lee Camp on Monday. We had Savvy Savs come on my show Wednesday. Yep. We had the Bannon Biden podcast on RBN Table today. Now I got my brother, my hotspot assassin, Nico House, coming on Friday. What a week. Banger after banger. So that I'm gonna get grab some eat. I'll pass you, JB. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And another hotspot video will be released tomorrow as well. So what a great week in RBN. What a time. Love you, brother. Love you, James.
Love you too, bro. Have a good one. All right. Shout out to Anthony Levinson coming out saying, thank you, RBN. Thank you so very much for that. We appreciate it very much. It helps keep the lights on up in here. All right. Also, just checking to see if we have any more Rumble rants before I leave, because sometimes, these things come in late. All right. I think we're good. So as far as that goes, let me check on the Rockfin side. Looks like we're good on the Rockfin side. All right. So with that being said, just to let you guys know, of course, I will be doing news stories this Sunday here on RBN. So you guys can look forward to that as well. I do also have a guest this Tuesday coming up for my channel as well, just so that you guys know. Let me go in here just to make sure I have it correct. Yes. So this Tuesday on October 1st. Let me see. So this Tuesday on October 1st, I will be having on Tariq Shabazz. He is running for Senate in Ohio. So he has been endorsed by the Green Party. Independent Senator from Ohio, Tariq Shabazz, will be joining me this Tuesday. So that should be a really great conversation about his policy positions as well. So be sure to tune in to my channel for that stream. Also, in addition to and furthermore, just to let you guys know, I will be trying to get to the readings on my channel as well. Been kind of busy, so just to let you guys know with the campaign. So unfortunately, it's like my time is a little bit more divided than usual, but we'll get there. We'll get there. All right. So everybody, thank you so very much for tuning in. Look, shout out to everybody for tuning in as well. Look, like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them. And also make sure to make demands. And then if they do not, when it comes to politicians, make your demands. And if they don't do what you demand, walk away or abandon them until you get what you want. All right, everybody, take care. Have a good day. Mwah. Forehead kisses, because that's the way I do it. Yes, I'm crossing my leg, and we out here. Shout out to the patrons on the way out. You guys have to go. Deuces, group.